I want to show you some clips of a speech that Gal Gadot just gave, where she states some important home truths about Jews, Israel, um, reveals some things that I didn't realize about her. She's actually comes from 8 generations of Jews that were living in Israel. Um, and of course, the Jewish people's relationship and connection and presence in that land dates back 4,000 years. But many of us were forcefully displaced from that land 2,000 years ago by the Romans. So the fact that she's got a presence, and we always, by the way, maintained, there were some Jews that always maintained a presence in that land, but most of us were scattered. But the fact she's got 8 generations there is quite significant. But I really want to just share with you some of the important things she said, because while some of the things she said may seem obvious to us, and truths she states about Israel and anti-Semitism, the fact is that for people, and certainly in the celebrity world, to say that, I think is all the more important. So have a watch.
My name is Gal. I'm a mother, a wife, a sister, a daughter, an actress. I'm Israeli, and I'm Jewish. I'm going to say it again. My name is Gal, and I'm Jewish. Isn't it crazy that just saying that, just expressing such a simple fact about who I am, feels like a controversial statement? But sadly, this is where we're at today. I grew up in Rosh Hashanah, in the center of Israel. My mother was the daughter of a Holocaust survivor. Her father, my grandfather, Avraham Weiss, may he rest in peace, was born in what was then Czechoslovakia. He was the only one in his family who survived. His father died fighting for the Czech army when the Nazis invaded, and his mother and brother were murdered in the gas chambers of Auschwitz. He came to Israel with nothing and built a life for himself. And despite the horrors he endured, he always taught me the values of love, compassion, and tolerance. את לא משיגה שום דבר בכעס ובשנאה. You don't win anything with anger and hate, he used to tell me. Thank you. On my father's side, I'm the 8th generation to be born in the land of Israel. One of my ancestors was the very first chemist in the Shearei Tzedek Hospital in Jerusalem. I'm very proud of both sides of my family, and they show the two sides of Israel. On the one hand, a country that provided a life raft for refugees fleeing the horrors of persecution, pogroms, and the Holocaust. And on the other hand, the historic homeland of the Jewish people, where our roots run deep and where we are an indigenous people. I am proud to be an Israeli, and I am proud to be Jewish. But this is a time when many of us in the Jewish community have had to find our voice and confront the hatred against us, even if it's extremely uncomfortable. That's been the case for all of us in every walk of life and every profession, including my own. I never really wanted to talk about politics. I kind of tried really, really hard to avoid it because no one wants to hear celebrities talking about political issues, right? But also, I regarded myself as a citizen of the world, an equal among equals. I'm Israeli, of course, and I knew that anti-Semitism and anti-Israel hate existed. And like all of us, sometimes I'd caught a whiff of it. But I never thought of myself as being where I came from. It was an aspect of who I am, but it didn't define me. And then October 7th happened, and everything since. Never did I imagine that we would witness such a day of such death and destruction of Jews in our lifetime. And never did I imagine that on the streets of the United States and different cities around the world, we would see people not condemning Hamas, but celebrating, justifying, and cheering on a massacre of Jews. I know I'm not the only one in this room when I say that this was a wake-up call. And here's the thing. However much you tried to avoid it before, even if speaking up wasn't really your thing, none of us can ignore the explosion of Jew hatred around the world anymore. And that's what I'm doing. No way I need it. It really is me standing in front of you today, saying simply that my name is Gal, and I'm Jewish, and we have had enough of Jew hatred. We will confront anti-Semitism, we will call it out, but we will never let it not only defeat us, but define us, because our love is stronger than their hate. In the days after October 7th, we were all distraught. Like many of you, I was glued to the horrors coming out of Israel and the hatred spilling over here. I'm not a religiously observant person, but I found myself in the temple, in the synagogue, and it was then when finally I was just a little bit comforted. I felt the embrace of the Jewish people and the power in the warmth of our community. And I will never forget that feeling, because even though I was a long way from home in Israel and I was in a temple in Los Angeles, I felt at home among family. And for those few precious moments, the chaos and violence of the outside world felt just a little bit easier to deal with. October 7th showed us that what happens to Jews anywhere affects Jews everywhere. And this goes both ways. Not only what happens there affects us here, but what happens here affects them there. So here we are in this room together, calling for the release of every single one of our hostages. We have to bring them home. With every hostage release, we hear new testimonies of the horrors they've been through. Every minute for them is hell. Their lives are in danger, and we need them home. We want the hostages and their families to know that we have your back, that we are here for you. And we need them to know that wherever they go in the world, where there's a Jewish community, they will always find people who campaigned for them, who love them, and who will never let them walk alone. Because this is who we are, and this is who we will always be, taking responsibility for each other. Along with my husband Yaron, we're bringing up 4 daughters to also be proud of who they are, to take responsibility, to love themselves. We're raising strong, independent Jewish women, strong women who stand with other women. Now, I know many women in this room and in our community that have stood strong for the rights of women and girls. On October 7th, Jewish women were sexually terrorized, raped, murdered and kidnapped by Hamas. We were all listening for, hoping to hear support from our sisters around the world, and too often heard silence. We can't wait any longer. We can't hold our breaths and pray or beg for support from people, groups, community that don't want to be there for us. We need to be there for ourselves. And this is why every single Jew must lean in now, in whatever way we can. Speak up, learn more about our history. We can always do that. Join a temple, find your community, get connected, and as we support our own community, never stop reaching out to the world. Rabbi Hillel famously said, Im en ani li mili. If I'm not for, sorry, I'm too excited. I'm not used to this. Rabbi Hillel famously said, Im en ani li mili. If I'm not for myself, then who will be for me? And if I'm only for myself, then what am I? So even if we don't hear others speaking up for us, we have to keep speaking up for ourselves and reaching out our hands to everyone to join in. That is what I tell my daughters. First, learn to love yourselves, who you are and where you're from, and then the rest will follow. It's time to pass on to our children a love of who they are. So, who are we? We, the Jewish people, are an ancient people with an ancient story in an ancient homeland. We are the people that celebrate life. We work to see better and more peaceful future. We challenge hate when we face it, but we do it with love while always striving to make the world a better place. And who am I? My name is Gal, and I'm Jewish. Am Yisrael Chai. Thank you.
It's an amazing speech because it is showing in reality something that has been a truth throughout Jewish history and Jewish teaching, which is that the Jewish people and Jews as individuals cannot escape their identity, whether they want to or not. Quite remarkable, actually, watching this. You've heard Gal say at the start of this, she didn't feel like her Jewishness and her Israeli background really defined her. But today, the very fact that she says that she's Jewish, it feels controversial. It feels like it is defining her, whether she likes it or not. I think it was the Kotzker Rebbe who said, if the Jews don't make Kiddush, the nations will make Havdalah. Meaning if the Jews don't lean into their identity as, in their role to sanctify this world, bring the voice of God into the world, then the nations of the world will make Havdalah, which means they'll distinguish us, they'll separate from us, they'll make it clear that we are Jews. And look what's happened. Since October 7th, since we experienced this kind of hatred and distinction among Jews, she's leaned into her Jewish identity. She's said she didn't used to speak about these kind of things, and now she's speaking up. She's leaning into her Jewish pride, leaning into going to temple, going into, encouraging more religious engagement. She quotes Rabbi Hillel. And I'm also minded of the fact that there's this notion that in the Torah, God says to Abraham, you'll be as numerous as the stars of the heaven. But then he also says later on, you'll be as numerous as the dust of the earth. And one explanation for the two comparisons is the stars represents the time when we're flying high as a people, but the dust of the earth represents the times when we're trampled on by the other nations and by anti-Semites. And there's a beautiful commentary, Torah commentary, that says that one thing that happens when dust is trampled upon or sand is trampled upon is it actually gets tighter. It comes together, and one of the products of this persecution, Jewish persecution, is that we become closer, more unified. And so what I'm saying is that we're seeing this happen in practice. We're seeing it in reality with Gal Gadot. And it's really amazing and powerful to see that a Jew, whether he likes it or not, she can't escape their identity. And the question is, why is that? Why is that the case? Why can't we escape our identity? You know, I was at a meeting yesterday, and it was with people concerned about anti-Semitism, and they were saying, you know, there was a non-Jewish TV presenter actually that was very much stands up for Israel, and was saying, I just don't get this whole rise in anti-Semitism, and it's like so illogical and irrational, and it's been going on not just now but for thousands of years. You know, how do we explain this? What is it? It doesn't seem like other hatred. It seems so irrational, so prevalent, so intense. And it's very clear from anyone, I believe anyone that's objective in looking at this, that the obsession with the Jews in the world is because there is a deeper destiny of the Jewish people and their relationship with this world. That they represent a certain project for mankind, and those that fight the Jews represent those who wish to go against that project. It's just, I don't see how anyone objective can conclude otherwise, that there is clearly a deeper metaphysical mechanism that's going on with anti-Semitism. I don't see how else you can explain it. The fact that the United Nations has more resolutions against Israel than all other nations combined, the fact that Israel is the one state whose very legitimacy, whose very existence is questioned in the whole world, just happens to be the Jewish one. I'm sorry, but to me it seems clear that anti-Semitism proves that there's a deeper destiny to the Jews and their role in this world. And this really touches on the last thing that I wanted to cover, which is what Gal Gadot says. She said, who are we? She was definitely getting close and saying who we are as a people. Yes, we are an ancient people. Yes, we celebrate life. Yes, we teach love over hate, all those things. We rise above hatred, absolutely. But what's the root of all this? What's the essential foundation of all those things? It is the fact that the Jewish people are here to be God's moral teachers, to bring the voice of God into the world, to be a nation of priests and a holy nation. So much of this has already been achieved. If you look at so much of the world's morality today, it stems from the ideas first articulated in the Torah, from world peace as an ideal to justice and equality before the law, to the infinite value of every human life, to social responsibility for the poor and the needy, and so on and so on. But if you want to cut to the core of who the Jewish people are and what our role is, and the reason why we will always be treated different, is because the Jewish people are meant to be God's chosen voice to the world, to bring his voice to the world. And that is a unique role that will always leave us distinct. And for as long as we wish to deny that fact, we won't be treated equally like other nations. We'll be treated in the same way as a teacher who wishes to be liked by all the students and denies their role as teacher. We'll end up just be treated differently, being taken advantage of, maybe even being bullied. But if we speak with a clear voice, I think now we'll actually be respected in a world that has lost all faith in all its other ideologies and idols that it once put its faith in. So the good news is that we're getting there. Jews are waking up, and slowly it's all happening. We're coming to terms with who we are, not running away from our identity, but running towards it, embracing it, which is quite remarkable, especially given the amount of hostility that we face. We refuse to run away and hide. And people like Gal should take a lot of credit for that. There's a lot at stake for her and her career to speak up like this. So it's amazing how the movements of history and events will continue to bring us more and more into our destined role in this world. It's incredible to see this happening in real time.
Hi, thank you so much for watching. To watch another one, click here. To stay up to date with all our content, click here to subscribe. And if you're able to, you can help support JTV to grow and grow by clicking join below this video, where you can become a member and get perks including early access to videos and private live discussions with me. But most of all, you'll be partnering with us on our mission to change the world.